and welcome to ReplayRetro. I'm Matt, and on this week's show we're taking a look at a quirky handheld from an unlikely producer as we explore the reinvention of mobile phone gaming with Nokia's N-Gage, leaving primitive Snake behind in favour of fully fledged handheld games. In the 90s, Nokia was the name in mobile production, setting new standards every day with more and more innovative phones with bold new features, such as 1997's computer and phone hybrid, the Communicator, which would eventually spawn waves of smartphones like we have today. At the turn of the new millennium, Nokia decided they'd already conquered the business world and wanted to look at the possibility of enhancing the game-playing capabilities of a phone, after realising just how many people were frequently carrying both a mobile phone and a handheld games console such as a Game Boy. It seemed obvious to them that merging these two devices was a logical step, creating something which would be perfectly usable as a phone, while also being able to keep up with the big boys and play some full-size handheld games. Then, in 2003, Nokia releases the N-Gage, a mobile phone with a 100 MHz ARM CPU, directional control pad and a 2.2-inch TFT screen capable of displaying 4096 colours at a resolution of 176 by 208, as well as an internal card slot for games. Nokia hoped their new hybrid would take a chunk out of the lucrative Game Boy Advance market, which up until this point had been pretty much unchallenged. With no experience in the gaming sector, Nokia knew they had to get big developers on board to produce big games to draw in the masses, and so they turned to companies like Sega and Eidos to produce quality, recognisable titles such as Sonic N and Tomb Raider for their fledgling platform. However, hardware limitations were already proving to be a problem, as the limited colour palette made enemies difficult to spot in Tomb Raider, and the vertical screen orientation forced upon Nokia by the N-Gage's operating system wasn't natural for Sonic fans. These problems made the system already look weak against the Game Boy Advance. However, unlike Nintendo's handheld, the N-Gage was capable of wireless multiplayer via Bluetooth, a feature exploited by the vast majority of games, as well as online multiplayer via GPRS and the N-Gage Arena, leading to highly rated games such as Pocket Kingdom's Own the World. However, at this time, GPRS usage was expensive, and so online gaming on the N-Gage was seen as somewhat of a luxury. Another advantage, though, over the Game Boy Advance was the inclusion of a radio and media player including MP3 decoder, potentially removing yet another device from the overburdened pockets of the geek hordes. With all this functionality, the N-Gage sounds like it should have been a massive success, but in its first 2 weeks on sale in the UK, it only managed to sell 800 units, despite claims from Nokia that these figures were much higher. Sales weren't helped by the fact that you could only buy an N-Gage from video game shops rather than mobile phone stores, and as such, contract deals were hard to come by until much later in the system's life. Those kinds of sales don't encourage developers to make games, and worse was to come for Nokia once those 800 people gave their opinion on the system. While most felt that the N-Gage was actually quite a competent gaming platform, they understandably didn't like having to take out the battery to change games due to the location of the game slot. And many felt that as a phone, it was just useless. This was because the speaker and microphone were located on the edge of the handset, making it uncomfortable to use and inspiring vast amounts of internet jokes related to the phenomenon of side talking, or as it later became known, taco talking, due to the device's similarity to a delicious Mexican foodstuff. So, with the ill-fated N-Gage already starting to look shabby around its edges, let's take a quick look at the hardware itself and a small selection of the available games. Okay, so here we are with the original model N-Gage. As you can see, compared to my hands even, it's a very small device, which fits very comfortably in your pocket. I think it is actually smaller than a Game Boy Advance. First thing you'll notice then in the middle is the screen, which, as we've already mentioned, is a vertical orientation rather than horizontal. Vertical being more commonplace for phones, but horizontal being more commonplace for gaming. So already we're seeing the first sign that this isn't quite as gaming capable as we're being led to believe. You have, of course, all your standard phone buttons. So you've got all your numbers here, your hang up button, your accept call button, your 2 context sensitive soft keys, a writing button, a cancel button. You then here have buttons to access the media player and the radio, which requires the headset to be plugged in. The only real addition then, in terms of buttons, is the D-pad here, which is obviously designed for your games. Then 2 of these buttons are massively raised up, that is 7 and 5, very massively raised up to represent gameplay buttons like your A and B button on a normal console. And when you hold the N-Gage like that, with the D-pad and those 2 buttons, it's a very comfortable system. It's very nice to hold, it's very balanced, so it lines up with your eyes straight away. Scattered all around you have your standard mobile phone connections, so your headset, your power, your synchronization cable, all those kinds of things. You then also have your microphone here, in the end you might not be able to see that, and your speaker here, which is why we have the side talking problem, because you have to hold this side of the phone against your skull. And then just here we have the power button. There's the back, but as you're noticing, we don't have a card slot for the games. So where do we put the games? Well, as we've already mentioned, you need to dismantle the phone to put the games in. So, first of all, you need to turn the phone off by holding the power button, selecting switch off, and then the phone will switch off. You then need to take off the back and throw that somewhere, pull out the battery and throw that somewhere, and then you have access to the slot here, which is for sliding in the memory cards which contain the games. So let's take a quick look at one of the games cartridges before we actually install it. Games themselves come in these rather nice boxes. This is Super Monkey Ball by Sega, fantastic game. Rather nice boxes, very solid. One thing you initially notice though is, like most handheld game boxes, they're quite big. You couldn't carry a lot of these on you in public if you wanted to be able to change games on the go. But we'll come back to that in a moment. Inside then, we find the instruction manual, really decent full colour instruction manual there, we like that. You then find the game cartridge itself, if you can get it out without snapping it to pieces. There you go, tiny little game, even smaller than a DS game, tiny game, which of course, as we've said, slots into the phone like this. Simply put it there and push it in, and that's installed, so you can then put the battery back in, slide on the back cover, turn the phone on, and you're ready to have that game that you've just put in, you can now play. It's okay if you're planning on leaving the same game in for a long period of time, but if you do want to switch, it's a real problem. I mean, I could have missed calls while my phone was off then. I'm obviously going to have texts coming through when I re-switch it back on. It's not a great system, really. It's not a very convenient idea. I have no idea why they thought that would be a good idea, but there you go, they just did. The other thing that comes in these game boxes is this little plastic case here, which is a really good thing, and I think Nintendo could learn something from this. All this is a little piece of flimsy plastic with the N-Gage logo on it, but in there is space for 4 game cartridges. Now, most of the games I have come on single cards, no need to change them or anything at any point, so I can carry around 4 games there, so I can take the phone, stick that in my pocket, put 4 games in there, stick that in my pocket, or even my wallet. That would fit quite comfortably in my wallet, I think. And I've got 4 games with me. Whereas with the DS or the PSP, I would either have to carry around big bulky game boxes or take the risk of carrying around just the actual cards or cartridges themselves. That's a worry, I could lose them quite easily. So this is a great idea. Good work to Nokia for that. Come on Nintendo, can we do something similar? So, anyway, to play the game, once you've got the card installed, you simply press that context sensitive button there and you're in the menu. And now that you have a game cartridge installed, you'll find in the corner here there is a button allowing you to play Super Monkey Ball. So let's do that. Okay, so as is always the case when I review a handheld, we're going to have to do this through the viewfinder, so I'm sorry if it drifts off from side to side like that. And I'm also sorry that you can see my face in the reflection. But I'll be playing this through the viewfinder, so I will be terrible. So let's press 5 to get into the game. Game start. You've obviously got mini games and you've got the main game. We'll just go straight to the main game. Best go with beginner because of the viewfinder. And then obviously got your characters to choose from. Let's have Gong Gong, because everyone loves Gong Gong. Obviously those of you that don't know Super Monkey Ball, the object is to roll around in your ball in various worlds and collect bananas without rolling off the edge. And don't do what I did just then, which is only collect one banana. That would be silly. For what is essentially quite an intensely 3D based game with lots of effects like this in it, this plays really well on the N-Gage. Oh, it's so difficult playing through a viewfinder. Yeah, we've got one banana. Don't roll off the... And I did that obviously to demonstrate what happens if you fall off. You know, that's why I did that. Okay, stop trying to get bananas and just get to the end of the level. It's a great short form game, this Super Monkey Ball, and obviously there are enough levels to really keep you going. So this would be a great game to have in your phone all the time. Because obviously on the bus or wherever you are and you just have 5 minutes to kill, a quick game of Super Monkey Ball is a great time killer. And obviously on the phones that we have these days, we can do that very easily. On your iPhone or on my Sony Ericsson Xperia phone, I could easily, quickly bosh out a quick game of Super Monkey Ball, and that'll help me pass some time if I'm bored anyway. Great idea. Great game. Next up then is Colin McRae Rally 2005. And as you can see, this game features all the options you'd expect. You've got a good selection of cars, for example, a good selection of tracks and weather conditions. You then have the option to set up aspects of your car as you would expect to in a Colin McRae Rally game. Obviously conduct repairs between races. Which really does add some depth and make this more of a game rather than just a racer. Which is a good thing for a mobile platform. As you can see, graphically, it's a perfectly good looking game. And the sound as well is very good. It's actually more playable, to me at least, than a lot of the rally games I have on more modern phones. Just because of those extra setup options and things like that. And because the controls are quite well designed for it. Those two raised buttons are very good here. They are essentially your for accelerator and brake. And for such a small game really, designed for the mobile platform, there's a lot of customization, a lot of options, a lot of different features to this game, which really make it stand out. If you are thinking of picking up an N-Gage, then I definitely recommend getting this game, or maybe Asphalt Urban GT if you're after more of just an outright racer rather than an in-depth rally simulation. Finally then, we have a very recognisable game. This is the original Call of Duty from Infinity Ward and Activision. As you can see, graphically, for a first-person shooter on a mobile phone, this is really quite good. It's a little bit clunky as you turn around, but generally, I'd say this is quite solid. The sound on it is actually quite harsh, quite almost frighteningly. Uh-oh, that's going to blow up. Almost frighteningly harsh. You do have a good array of weapons in this game. It's not very brilliantly intuitive because obviously your buttons are all, are all scattered on a keypad. Your buttons are all obviously scattered on the phone's keypad over here rather than being the control pad that you're used to. So various keys help you to crouch or change weapon or pick up weapons or fire, etc. And it's not massively intuitive, but if you were to spend time and get used to it, I don't think it'd be a problem at all. And I'm dead. It's a good solid game, and definitely less of a short form game for the mobile, which is always good. In late 2004, a revised version of the N-Gage called the N-Gage QD was released to address what Nokia saw as the two main flaws. Firstly, the speaker and microphone were moved to more conventional positions to stop side talking, and secondly, the game slot was made more accessible, no longer requiring the user to switch off and dismantle their handset. However, in an utterly boneheaded move, Nokia also chose to remove the system's radio and MP3 capabilities to reduce costs. But the fact is, this revision was already too late anyway, and the N-Gage was a massive joke at this point. The QD never stood a chance under the sheer weight of bad press, and by the end of 2004 only 1 million systems had been sold, compared to Nokia's target of 6 million. And in 2006, the release of Payload saw the final game go to whatever retailers would still carry it. By this time, UK sales tracker ChartTrack had even stopped producing a chart for the system, as they felt that nobody really cared. And that says it all. Eventually, N-Gage would be relaunched as part of the Ovi service on Nokia smartphones, before even the name itself was abandoned in 2010, leaving it a clear failure in console history. But it's important to remember that the N-Gage proved there was a desire for better quality, less short-form gaming on the go, especially when integrated with the mobile phones we all carry. And perhaps without the N-Gage, charging out into no man's land only to get gunned down, we might not be where we are now, with our current generation smartphones capable of playing great games we'd previously have only seen on a dedicated gaming platform. So next time you're shopping on the Android market, the App Store, Ovi Store, or whatever else, spare a thought for the little taco that made it all happen, and remember the N-Gage fondly for what it tried to do. That's all for this week. Join me again next time for more retro gaming reviews from ReplayRetro.